Business exists only to meet the needs of the people, but there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTime's DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
A very delightful evening and welcome to yet another day to be alive. This is Eye on Issues coming to you live on Spectrum Television, and of course we're being live from the very beautiful city of York, Ibom State, broadcasting on StarTime's DTH Channel 421. Of course, today as always we will be looking at a very critical issue that is rarely talked about, but of course affects each and every one of us and by extension the larger society. My name is Francis Oyima and I will be your anchor as always. Of course, today is celebrated the world over as World Mental Health Day, and our focus will be on our mental health. Now, mental health, the subject, the World Mental Health Day 2023 is definitely a universal issue, and of course the question of universal right, which serves as a reminder to everyone on this planet to raise awareness, advance understanding, and of course encourage actions that will protect and advance our individual and collective mental health and rights. Now, we know that the World Mental Health Day is celebrated on October 10th every year, and this year our minds, our rights is the focus of the celebration. Of course, there's also a call for individuals to pay attention to the things we do to improve knowledge, raise awareness, and of course drive action that promotes and protects individuals' mental health across the landscape. Now, in regards to these, there are different scenarios that plays out in the community, different vices that we get ourselves involved in that leads to a repercussion effect on our mental health. And sometimes those things are rarely looked into and attentions is not being paid to this issue. Now, good mental health is vital to our overall health and well-being, yet it has been stated that 1 in 8 people globally are living with mental health conditions which can impact their physical health, their well-being, and how they connect with others, and of course their livelihood. Now, mental health conditions are also affecting an increasing number of adolescents and young people. Of course, the issue of having a mental health condition should never be a reason to deprive a person of their human rights or to exclude them from decisions about their own health. Of course, yet all over the world, people with mental health conditions continue to experience a wide range of human rights violations, many excluded from community life and discriminated against, while many more cannot access the mental health care they need or can only access care that violates their human rights. Now, according to WHO, they continue to work with relevant partners to ensure mental health is valued, promoted, and protected, and that urgent actions is taken so that everyone can exercise their human rights and access the quality mental health care they truly need. Today, the world over, we join the World Mental Health Day 2023 campaign to learn more about the basic rights to mental health, as well as how we can collectively, protect the rights of people living with mental health, whether or not they're family, friends, and loved ones. Now, the keynotes for us to take away from today's celebration is that affordable, effective, and feasible strategies exist to promote, protect, and restore mental health. And there is a need for action on mental health. And of course, this need is indisputable and it is urgent. That mental health has intrinsic and instrumental value and is integral to our well-being as a community, as a people, as a family. And the last thing we have to note is that mental health is determined by a complex interplay of individual, social, and structural stresses and vulnerabilities. Now, when you look at all of these and put them in perspective, you would now understand that from our work environment to our personal life, to our community life, to even our religious life, mental health plays a vital role to our overall well-being. And so, regardless of the fact that we have not really given it the exposure, given it the significant importance, so our awareness has not been focused enough on the issue of mental health, there is a great need and urgent call for us to do that as we celebrate the 2023 World Mental Health Day. And that's the reason why today our focus conversation is going to be on, of course, mental health and its burden and how these impacts on Nigeria. And my guest this evening is none other than Kendra Chime, who is a counseling psychologist and mental health advocate. She is working with the Center for Behavioral Change and Public Enlightenment. Of course, this is an NGO formed in order to enlighten young minds about sustainable health, mental health, youth education, empowerment, of course, gender equity, and inclusion, among other things. Good evening, Kendra. Welcome to Iron Issues.
Good evening, Francis. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Thanks for joining us. You're doing a great work. Generally, what's your feeling about the World Mental Health Day that's being celebrated today?
I have a lot of feelings about it. I recall the theme for this year is universal human rights. And I know that there are a lot of things we don't see as human rights, but mental health is actually one of them. And it's going to sound kind of strange to a lot of people. It's not food, it's not shelter, it's not clothing, but it's still a universal human right. Everyone who suffers mental health issues, people who will suffer it, those who have suffered it in the past, they deserve a right to feel, to be included in whatever it is that we are doing. And it is very important because if you have a staff whose mental health is not in place, I think the productivity of such a staff is going to be limited. So it's very important in the family, in society. I mean, it's important everywhere.
Okay, of course, the importance cannot be overemphasized, but let's start from the very basics. Sometimes people think that unless somebody is mad in the street and walking naked or, clad in rags, that person is not mentally ill or unstable. So I'd like for us to start from the very basics. How would you define mental illness or the lack of mental health?
Okay, I would say it's not about wearing rags. It's not about going crazy on the road. Most times you see people who are well dressed, like very well dressed in suits and all, but they are not okay mentally. And gone are those days when we see people on the road and probably you hear mental health and it's associated with madness. These days you see people who are well dressed, but they are not very okay. So I would say when someone is not mentally balanced, the person is not let's define mental health first before we look at the state of being mentally ill. Mental health is a state of completeness in the head, in the mind and in the mind, a state of completeness in the head and in the mind. So when someone is not okay in the head, it's not because the person is mad. When someone is not okay in the mind, it's not because the person is mad. Such person is not mentally okay. And let me also add that a state of being mentally ill could be as a result of as little as lack of sleep, as little as stress, as little as work stress, as mundane as those things sound, they could actually be why someone is not mentally okay. I don't know if I have answered your question.
Yes, definitely. Okay, so this definitely means that people can be working around on a day-to-day basis, as we have been told by WHO that 1 in 8 persons actually have a mental health problem. But of course, they might not be well noticed because they are living their normal life. So how do we identify people who have one issue or the other when it comes to their mental health status?
If we want people to be identified, we'll have to give a lot more grace. We'll have to give a lot more room for those people to be able to come forward. If I have mental health issues like depression, like anxiety, I would not want to come forward if I know that someone would turn me mad in the head. So we have to give a lot of room for people to come forward and say, I don't feel okay, I don't feel good. You know, it's not a madness issue. Now, if you want to know someone who is mentally ill, you could watch for signs of depression, you could watch for signs of anxiety, you could watch for signs of low self-esteem, you could watch for signs of withdrawal. Those are signs of mental illness. It doesn't just come like, oh, someone is feeling very sad today and the person is having mental illness. No, it develops over time. So if you want to know someone who's mentally ill, the person must have been depressed for, let's say, 3 months. The person must have had some traumatic issues from childhood that made him or her lose their self-esteem. The person might be having anxiety issues for a period of time for you to say someone is mentally ill.
Okay, now let's come down to some of the jobs that you do with the Center for Behavioral Change and Public Enlightenment, the NGO you work with. I know that most of your jobs focus with the younger generation, and we know that these particular generations are more prone to, you know, having mental issues because of the vices that they involved in. So I'd like for you to throw more light on your work generally within the foundation.
Okay, what we at Center for Behavioral Change and Public Enlightenment do is we go out there to do outreaches and sensitize young people. Most of them, after their outreaches, come up to us and tell us, oh, I'm involved in this, I'm involved in that. And some of them are very withdrawn. We have to visit again and again for them to get to open up to us. So we go to school, we visit schools, and then we do a repeat visit just in case some persons need counseling or therapy sessions. We go back there so that we can be able to give counseling where needed.
Okay, training, counseling where needed. So these children, just as I think this afternoon I came across a piece where some experts are advocating for the punishment within the constitutions of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that criminalizes suicide to be removed. So I'd like to ask, is suicide one of the thereof of you know, mental illness or mental challenges?
Yes, it absolutely is. For someone to take the step of suicide, although in Nigeria, suicide is a criminal offense, that's for sure. For someone to take that step, such a person must have been depressed for quite a period of time. Such a person may not have had someone to talk to. Probably there are people around, but the person feels like, oh, if I talk to this person is going to noise it abroad and stuff like that. So sometimes we are in the midst of people discussing, laughing, having normal conversations, and 1 or 2 persons amongst us are depressed, and we don't notice. You know, it takes a lot to actually know what goes on in people's minds. So I don't know what goes on in the minds of people who commit suicide, but it's definitely a mental health issue. And I think some things are also supposed to be addressed. A lot of things could lead someone to commit suicide, and like a depressed person for a long period may decide to commit suicide. Someone an angered youth who does not know how to control his or her tantrums or emotions can decide to commit suicide. Like, that is an option, but that's not an option.
Okay, definitely a very big scenario there. But let's come down to something that I know is also very critical to our mental health, status, our mental health. Now, we spend a whole lot of our times, our days at work, in our work environment. Are there things that can happen within the office space that can trigger, mental health issues or mental health related
Thank
problems?
you.
Wow. A whole lot can actually happen in the work environment that can increase one's stress level, contribute to anxiety, depression, and other mental health conditions around. Toxic work environment can affect someone's sleep. Like, you go to work, you come back, you'll not be able to sleep. As little as sleep is, it can affect it. It can affect your eating habits. It can give you regular low energy and affect your mood generally. In a toxic work environment, there's every possibility that, as much as probably your supervisor, your manager, or the HRO is toxic, you will also have toxic colleagues. If a few toxic persons will be amongst them, and then they will bully you. You know, staff bullying staff. Those things result to, like, reduces someone's mental health to probably zero level.
Okay, definitely. So how do we go about solving these, different scenarios that might play out within the work environment to further help people to have, quality lifestyle? What can the office space, the organizations, whether in the government quarters or the private enterprises, do to ensure that their staff, their health are being protected?
Okay. Let me start from the individual, the person, me, you, every other person out there. Be kind to one another. It doesn't cost so much to show kindness. It doesn't cost so much to be nice to someone, because you don't know what people are going through, you know. And then I would also say that management, MDs of organizations, CEOs of organizations should organize constant training of their staff, HROs, managers, supervisors, even to the least staff. You know, staff with attitudes can be demoted just to make a point for others to learn from. Like, people come to work with their nasty attitudes from their houses and then end up influencing others and bullying other people who cannot stand up to them. So MDs have to um, start by training and retraining when it be. You know, give your staff orientation. Gone are the days when you come to work and you talk to your co-workers anyhow. You talk to people with respect. You treat people with respect. I mean, your organization will be empty and nothing if there are no persons to work there for you. So I think it should start from the top and then come down. While we also tackle the individual, show kindness. It doesn't cost so much.
All right, let's look at the place of relationship, individual relationship, personal relationship, intimate relationship. How does these issues or things arising from such relationship, come to play in terms of our mental health?
And some persons are actually in toxic relationships, but they do not know that they are in toxic relationships. And some persons will tell you love is pain, pain is love. As much as love is pain and pain is love, there are some situations where you should not find yourself in. Now, we have harmful behaviors that people carry out in relationships. You know, you're in a relationship with someone, could be a marital relationship, and then the person is criticizing you all the time, belittling you, you know, like telling you how you're not good enough. And then there's manipulation and there's control. Someone wants to control a full-grown adult. I mean, those things stresses the mental health, you know. There's low self-esteem, there's anxiety, there's depression. There are people who are in marital relationships and they are depressed because of how their partners treat them. There are people who are in relationships and they have anxiety issues, like barely seeing your phone and your partner is calling, your heart skips. Those are toxic relationships. And to protect yourself, you need to set boundaries. Like, realize that your mental health is very important. Like, if you are mentally okay, you can tackle any situation. But once your mental health has been tampered with, sometimes you tend to act abnormally, but you are not abnormal. It's because probably the other person is being manipulating in the relationship. So you have to set boundaries, know the things you can tolerate, and know what you cannot tolerate. Nothing is um, like, in order to tackle toxic relationships, you have to look for stress reduction practices. Whatever helps you reduce your stress, do it. And then be ready to walk away. If the relationship is going to make you turn into a mad person, in quotes, I think you have to prepare yourself mentally to be able to walk away from it.
Okay, that's definitely a whole lot. I'm learning this evening for the first time that people equate love with pain. And
Yeah.
it's a funny narrative, though. But let's come down to still the teenagers and vices. I know that in my conversation with the commandant of the NSCDC, for instance, issues of drug and drug-related challenges can also lead to mental health. But I'd like to ask, in your course of duty, have you experienced or encountered people who are having these mental challenges as a result of drug-related issues?
Absolutely, I have. Recently, we encountered a school pupil. Okay, a secondary school pupil. She's around 14, and she was already into meth. There's this one they call meth. You know, it's a hard drug actually. So, and she's that addicted to the point where she takes it daily, like every day. That's the addiction stage where she is right now. And what this does to her is that when she comes to school in the morning, she's very distracted. Like, how did we know? She indicated interest in joining the outreach, and then she was seated. But at some point, she was not there. Like, she was present there, but her mind was way out of the environment. So we had to like talk to her, and then gracefully she opened up and told us that her mind is actually where she needs to be in the next few hours after school. Like, she needs to get this thing so she gets better. But I want young people, I want us also as caregivers to these young people to realize that sometimes we think it is the solution to our problem, but once the whole thing clears up from our system, our problems are just staring us in the face. So young people needs to be sensitized, like, constantly. That's the essence of these outreaches. We do them frequently. Young people need to be talked to. They need to be guided. If it means once in a week, schools gather the children and talk to them, it works. Like, tell them the dangers of this thing. It's not just that they are taking drugs. Some of them will end up in the streets wearing raggy clothes because they could not get better care of their issues. And not all their parents too can afford the aftercare of this drug abuse. Some parents can barely pay the fees of the children, and then they get involved in with drugs. How do the parents pay for the rehabilitation? Rehabilitation is expensive. So these children should realize that we want the best for them. Their parents want the best for them. Sometimes this happens as a result of peer pressure. So why I said constant outreach is that even those friends of their friends and friends of their friends will also participate in hearing these things and make amends. And then we should also let them know that the dangers are more. Like, the highness is interesting, in quotes, interesting, but the dangers of these things are unquantifiable.
All right, Kendra, we'll come back to draw more on this conversation. I'd like to know your thoughts about government's involvement, investment also in the issue of fighting mental health, especially considering the level of burden that we have. I think in Nigeria some time ago, it became almost like a new normal that every day somebody was committing suicide. And during that time, there were a lot of calls and conversations around the fact that parents are not doing enough, schools environments are not doing enough, the state's Ministry of Health, the federal government are not doing enough to promote and protect the health of Nigerians. We'll come back to this conversation, but we'll take a short time out. Please stay with us.
Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by grossly abuse. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigeria Police Force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the matters counsel is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but you can't be talking about cases which are in court,
Is
my
this
lord.
an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding you, your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
Glad to welcome you back. Of course, this is Eye on Issues, and we're beaming live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, live on Spectrum Television, channel 421, start time DTH. Today, we're looking at mental health and how it impacts on our collective growth and development as a people. Of course, my guest is none other than Kendra Chime, who is of course, a mental health advocate. She's with Center for Behavioral Change and Public Enlightenment, an NGO that is formed in order to enlighten young minds about sustainable health, mental health, youth education, empowerment, gender equity, and inclusion. Of course, just before we went to that short break, I was just about throwing a question on to Kendra about government investment in the health sector, particularly when it comes to mental health. So, Kendra, what is your take on the investment aspect, would you say the government of Nigeria at the federal level and the state level have invested enough into, the issue or the sector of mental health?
Thank you so much. I would say the government is not doing enough. The government is not doing enough. This has to do with children. We are trying to get children off the street. We're trying to get teenagers to do better. So I'll say the government is not doing enough. Rehabilitation centers are made of less capacity even in the states. I don't know about the federal. The private rehabilitation centers are charging outrageous sums. Most parents cannot even pay their children's school fees. How much more rehabilitation fees? You know, to get into government-owned rehabilitation centers, the processes and the procedures are, they are much. They're actually much. So I just feel that the government is not doing enough. We can do better. I know that we can do better.
All right, just before we let you go, what would be your advice to young people and indeed Nigerians and Africans, of course, indeed, every individual across the surface of the earth, as far as mental health is concerned?
My first advice goes to the media. They often report mental health issues and link it to violence and portray it as something dangerous, a criminal act, something evil, and that people who go through these things are unable to live normal, fulfilled lives. So the narrative has to change from the media. And then we have the stereotype of the public, the general public. Now, this is where I have to say that don't look at people who complain about mental health issues as mad people. Don't look down on them. Include them. I think they are at more risk of harming themselves than causing harm to someone else. And then I would say to the young ones, few years from today, if you can live with the memories of the things you have done in the past, few years from now, you can go ahead and do them. But your memories will definitely haunt you. So I would say if you can focus on your education, most of our parents did not go to school and they are struggling so hard for us to get a good education. If you can focus on that education, you are going to go higher. Education is not scam, actually, like people think. Education is not scam. Look for every avenue to enlighten yourself, enlighten your mind. Sometimes it's not about what we
All right, of course, I do hope we can, would have been able to
away from negative people.
All right. Thank you so much, Kendra. It's been wonderful having you and having this conversation. And we continue to encourage you to do the amazing job you're doing at the NGO so that we can help our young generation to lead a healthy, free life, of course, to contribute their quota to the advancement of the community. But so much appreciate you coming on Eye on Issues today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you.
All right. Have a great evening.
Yes.
Of course, in her comments, Kendra has mentioned the fact that rehabilitation centers are a very big issue of concern, and that is why standing by and joining us right away is Reverend Father Donatus Ukpong, who is the president, Mobile Manor Foundation, an NGO that has been involved in taking our brothers and sisters with mental challenges off the street, proffering solutions, of course, taking them into mental home, giving them the necessary support, the treatment, the guidance, the counseling that they require to get well, and then, of course, put them through the processes of gaining, requisite skills before having them reintegrated into the society. Of course, we're going to have conversations around issues of treatment, and reintegration of brothers and sisters who have had one or two challenges, and of course have been, tagged as not being mentally stable. Good evening and welcome to Eye on Issues, Father Donatus.
Thank you very much for having me. Happy World Mental Health Day.
Yes, truly appreciate. I know that within the course of this week, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was today, your foundation had an event to celebrate and mark the World Mental Health Day. So how was the event?
It was great, amazing. We have the turnover that surprised us. We had events at the 250 seating capacity auditorium of the University of Uyo. And the halls was overflowing with people, so it was very interesting. We had our national colloquium on mental health and development. And this year being special for me as a priest, celebrating my silver jubilee of priestly ordination. We also use that opportunity to present to the public my book to mark the anniversary, God in the City, Theology for Integral Development. In that book, I dedicated a chapter to mental health and spirituality in Africa, examining the intricacy between religions and science in mental health care delivery.
That's awesome. Congratulations, Father, on your anniversary, and a great appreciation for all the jobs you're doing at the Mobile Manor Foundation. I know that is really a tasking one. So let's jump in. The last time we had conversations with you and some of the people from the Mobile Manor Foundation, I was very much impressed to find out that not only has the foundation been able to treat people, you've also been able to give them skills and also get these group of persons back into the society, some of them living an amazing life that people wouldn't even remember if they were, ever associated with any mental issues. So I'd like to talk about the work at the Mobile Manor Foundation a little bit before jumping to other issues.
Yes, thank you very much. We are really focused on what we have been doing, that is treatment, rehabilitation, and integration. So far, we have developed our treatment facility to a level of providing reliable data that everything is online, and we try our best, and God is doing more than we imagine to restore mental health of our brothers and sisters. Truly, as the scripture would say, with God, everything is possible. And that possibility is when we see someone that was eating from gutter, from dustbin, someone that was neglected, abandoned by the family, being restored back to life and experiencing real fulfillment and contributing to his or her own quarter to national development.
Hello, Father, are you with us? Okay, I think we've had a little bit of network interference there, but of course, it is amazing to know that people with mental illness can actually be treated and, of course, pass through the process of being reintegrated back into the society and also be able to contribute their quota. I do hope we can get Father back on the line. So we'll look at some of the myths that have emanated from issues of mental health and how we can all collectively work together to disabuse the minds of Africans, Nigerians, and the world over from some of these myths that, of course, has also been a big challenge to how we look at the issue of mental health, mental illness, and how we work with people who have these mental challenges. We'll take a short break while trying to connect back with Father Donatus. Once we do that, we'll get back to iron issues. Just stay with us. This is Iron Issues, and we're beaming live from Uyo, the very beautiful city of Akwa Ibom State, live on Spectrum TV, channel 421 DTH. You can connect us on our socials at spectrumtvlive.ng to view on the live what is happening live in the studio. Of course, my guest is Reverend Father Donatus Upang, who is the president of Mobile Manor Foundation. And just before we had that network interference, we're talking about what the foundation has been doing. So, Father, go back right to what you were saying before we went on that short glitch.
Yeah, I'm sorry for the interruption.
It's all right, Father.
Well, we are providing clinical evidence-based treatment, and with God's grace and assistance, we are glad to affirm categorically that mental illness is treatable, manageable sickness. Brothers and sisters who are on the streets really suffering because of mental health care is very painful, because that suffering is avoidable.
Okay, so far, how much, what numbers would you say the foundation has been able to treat, heal, and then reintegrate back into the society? And apart from the last conversations we had, I know we had conversations with some of them, so even the people we had conversations with, how are they faring at the moment?
Yeah, they are doing well. They are really improving. They are getting more proficient in their trade, in their learning. And every human person continues to learn and grow every day. There is always room for improvement. So those brothers and sisters who are undergoing rehab, learning one skill or the other, they are improving, and we are delighted by their progress in life. Progress medically, progress economically, and we are very grateful to God.
Okay, Father, this year, one of the conversations currently trending is the advocacy for the federal government through the National Assembly to decriminalize the issue of suicide and other related issues, which of course has been linked to mental health. So I'm coming to you with this question. What is your rating of government investment in the mental health of Nigerians and our people?
Well, is a government investment in mental health care is, I feel like laughing, because to the base of my knowledge, not much has been done. And it's not only peculiar to our nation, of course, but generally the attention given to mental health care is not very encouraging. It's also very difficult to see a donors agency who are really focused on helping people to promote their mental health care. A lot of work has to be done in that direction. And we are really appealing and grateful to God that a new mental health has been signed in our country, that somehow will position the government to do the needful. There will be synergy between government, private sectors, and non-governmental organizations to strengthen the mental health care of our citizens. As we said in our foundation, a mentally healthy society is a productive society. Where men and women are not mentally healthy, they can never be productive. If we look at the level of productivity in our country, something that is a normal thinking imagination, after series of investment, serious investment in power sector, we cannot solve our problem. That is to tell you the level of the mental capacity of our citizens and those who are involved in doing this. And also the mental capacity of the policymakers, that while is it that they have to invest so much resources or invest so much resources without doing the needful for the public. That is to tell you that these guys are not really mentally healthy. Because someone who is investing public fund to build houses for himself in Dubai, in Nigeria, in London, in Lagos, everywhere in the world, whereas the person has to sleep on one bed a night, then you see that person is not mentally healthy. Then someone who has to steal a lot of public funds in order to provide apparently a better future for family, his children, turning those children into morons that they cannot work for themselves, they cannot earn their living, thinking that their children should not work, should not use their intellectual capacity. Source of those is very obvious that they are not mentally healthy. So in order to change the narrative, I think that both government, religious organizations, we have to really go back to the grassroots to educate our people, strengthen mental health care, and deepen the capacity of individuals to think correctly so that truly we can have a productive society.
All right, shortly just before we let you go, Father, what is your advice to the people the world over as we celebrate this year's World Mental Health Day as concerns how we can take care of our health and how we can help each other maintain a safe, healthy environment?
Thank you. The theme of this year's World Mental Health Day is apt, that mental health care is a universal right. You and I have the right to mental health care. And it is not allowed or permissible for anybody, any individual, to put pressure on another person's mental health. And it is not acceptable that people stigmatize or humiliate or deny people who have mental health challenges their rights to treatment, affordable treatment, and dignifying care. So my message is very clear, that together we can work to make sure that this right is experienced, enjoyed by all our citizens, by removing every obstacle that can hinder people's rights to mental health. And there is no need, whether in organization or place of work, or even in school, to put pressure on persons that may affect their mental health negatively.
All right, thank you so much, Father. We truly appreciate you taking the time. I know today has been quite a busy schedule for you, but we appreciate you coming on Eye on Issues today.
Thank you for having me.
Have an interesting evening, Father.
Thank you, you too.
All right, of course, we've been focusing our conversations on today's edition of Eye on Issues on the issue of mental health and how it affects you and I and how we can further advance our collective growth and development as a community. Of course, we just spoke with Reverend Father Donatus Upango, who is the President Mobile Manor Foundation. And earlier on today's edition of Eye on Issues, we had conversations with Kendra Chime, who is, of course, an advocate for mental health and works with Center for Behavioral Change and Public Enlightenment, an NGO formed in order to enlighten young minds about sustainable health, mental health, youth education, empowerment, gender equity, and inclusion, among other issues. Your health is very critical, and mental health is more critical than any other thing, as we need this to be able to function and, of course, live out our lives to become all we potentially were created to be. So do yourself a favor and do the next person a favor. Ensure you create an enabling environment in the office space, in your home, in your intimate and non-intimate relationships, so that we all can have a healthy space to live a healthy life. My name is Francis Oyimaide. Thanks so much for joining us. This is the size of our package, and do have yourself an interesting day. Remember to always look out for the next person and ensure to be a law-abiding citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. God bless you.
SpectrumTv, broadening your horizon.